Ready to hit the pause button on your parenting fails? Ready to feel better about your parenting? Welcome to Parenting Pause, the podcast, where all of you is welcome and where you can listen in on how other parents became the parents they always dreamed of being. I'm Leslie Potter, the founder of the Pure Joy Parenting Way. I'm a mother, a parenting coach, and a fellow traveler on this journey to wake up in our parenting. And I believe together we can make this a better world for ourselves and our kiddos. Today I'm welcoming Gillian, a mom of two girls, aged 10 and 13. Even though she worked hard on offering her girls a supportive environment to grow and thrive, she found her fear of letting go of control daunting. As she began to explore how to meet her fear with kindness, her relationships with her daughters also began to shift and change in magical ways. Hello, love. Thank you for joining me today.
I'm so happy to be here with you, Leslie.
Share with us what nudged you to get more support in your parenting.
Well, as my older daughter was, I guess, maybe coming upon age 10 or 11 and really finding her own voice and such clarity about what she wanted, I started to notice that I was feeling a lot of anxiety and trying to control her behavior and what was going on. And I think it was mostly my own anxiety, my own fear coming up that really drove me to want to find another way.
Did you notice certain behaviors that were triggering you?
Well, what I noticed was she would ask if she could do something, and I would say no, and she would find a way to do it anyways because it's who she is. She's so clear about what she wants and what direction she needs to go, and so she would find a way to do it anyways. So that was something that was really triggering for me. And I also just noticed I was wearing myself out, and so I was over parenting and overdoing, and so I would get really tired, and then I would feel impatient and angry, and I just didn't feel the playfulness in myself. I just felt more stressed.
Well, I love what you talked about in that, often our children are coming to us. It's almost like they're trained to come to us to ask us if they can do something, right? But they're not really asking that. I mean, you're just saying this about her. She was already planning on doing it. So
Right.
what do you think? I mean, let's explore this one a little bit because I know this happens to a lot of folks. What do you think she was really coming to you for?
I think that is a great question. I wonder if in part she was coming to me for validation, not so much the question of if she could do whatever it was that she was doing, but it was more that maybe wanting validation, like this is going to be okay. If mom says it's okay, it's going to be okay.
But think on that for a moment, and this is a beautiful one to explore because I know for me as a mom, I got into that role of like, I'm all responsible. You're coming to me for a yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started realizing, like you said, that my daughter was almost coming to get that feedback that I had faith in her,
Yeah.
right? That I knew that she could do. If she came and asked me to do something, I had to know that she had some kind of readiness inside her. She wasn't
Mm-hmm.
asking permission. As you said, she was asking more to see, Mom, do you see that I'm ready for this too? Can you support me in this?
It's very powerful, Leslie, and
Yeah.
probably one of the hardest aspects of this work for me.
Speak to me about that a little.
Well, I would say, one of the big pieces for me was learning to be really compassionate and kind with myself.
Yes.
And that came, surprisingly, a little bit easier than this letting go of the control, my perceived control, and looking at both of my daughters and saying, I have faith in what they're asking for and what their choices are, and that I have faith in their journey, in their path, that I trust what they're up to, and that my job really is to mirror that back to them, that sense of faith, and rather than me trying to control. And I would say, as I did just a moment ago, that really has been the most challenging. There's still a part of me that thinks I need to control this in some way.
Well, we're trained this way, Gillian. We're trained to
Mm-hmm.
believe that we know what's best, right? The greatest thing you can do is ask good questions. We've talked about this so much for you, right? So
Yes.
yes, she's coming to see if she's ready almost because you're her safe base. She wants to, get that reflection back. But I learned with my daughter, it was always so powerful. Like she would come and say, "Mom, can I go to the mall?" And I would say, "I don't know, honey. Do you feel safe?" Right? I would always want to ask these questions, and she would say, "Yeah, I feel safe." And I said, "Well, how do you know you feel safe? I mean, I'm not going to be there. I can't keep you safe. How do you know?" She would go, "Well, they're my friends, and this, that, and the other." I say, "Okay, well, how do you know if you feel unsafe?" And then she would tell me. So we would go through this inquiry, and I know you've worked with this a lot, right? Because I wanted to be that person that could actually instill in her self reflection versus
Mm-hmm.
being the mom, which you talked about, that, decided what was right or wrong or good or bad or what she could or couldn't do.
Even I think this is one of the most powerful pieces of the work that I've done with you through Pure Joy Parenting. I really feel like this inquiry, and I'm still learning and I'm still practicing, because they're growing up and each day they come to me with something new.
Yes.
And so I feel like it's one of the most powerful pieces is this inquiry. And really love what you said, is that that desire to have your daughter to be self-reflective, to so that hopefully they internalize those questions and are asking them, as time goes on, asking themselves, well, do I really want another piece of candy? I just had one. My stomach does feel a little tight from that. Or
And I got
is
to Jillian, I got, oh, like, well, how are they ever going to know that if we don't,
mm-hmm.
teach them self reflection? If we're always saying, no, candy's not good for you. No, you don't need another piece. No, you know what that does to
Right.
your stomach. No, I don't think you can go. Right. So if we're
Mm-hmm.
always sitting in that role of that, we're the discerner. We're
Right.
doing the self reflection for them. How do they learn?
Mm-hmm.
So let's dig a little bit deeper. So, what was your greatest fear in doing that when we began to? Because I know we began to question you because you were quite controlling around food and TV and everything, right? I mean, you felt
Yeah.
you were trying to create this wonderful environment, and I want everybody to hear this. It was so innocent. You wanted to create this beautiful, thriving environment. But what was your fear when I started pushing on this a little bit hard for you of like, what would it be like to start reflecting back to your girls?
Mhm. Yeah, well, I it was really quite terrifying for me, and at times still is, to be. It's not
Mhm.
like I mean, I work with this all the time, so it's not like I've come to some place of it's all easy. It isn't, um, because but I remember in the beginning, especially, it was really terrifying for me. I had a lot of fear about their safety. So their safety around the food that they ate, or the things that they were exposed to. And I mean, it was so much from my own childhood. I wanted to create this beautiful utopia for them where they really wouldn't be touched by the world. I mean, that's really, or the harsh things in the world. And it took me a long time to realize, well, those are really the edges where they grow when they come upon something different or odd or even a little scary. That it's like, oh, well, that's where they actually have an opportunity to grow and find their own resilience and sense of safety within themselves. I was really scared about the safety piece. Over time, it's been easier to let go around the food stuff and really encouraging them to find for themselves what feels good inside their bodies and what doesn't. And that was a little easier than the whole technology piece. Now my daughter is getting to that age where she might have a computer for school soon, for example. And it's funny because I wasn't necessarily so nervous about what she might find on the internet, but just more sitting in front of a screen more often or using a cell phone, things that I didn't grow up with and I feel a little wary of. I'm like, whoa, what are these things we're using now as human beings? And so worry about what kind of impact will these things have on my children. And at the same time, realizing, well, this is the world that I live in and that they live in. And I'd rather that they know how to use these devices and find their own sort of inner compass around how to navigate cell phones, computers, amount of television time, all of those different pieces.
Well, I just want to reflect back to you. It's so beautiful talking to you because you just, you say it so clearly. As you said, I didn't grow up with these things, but here
Mm-hmm.
I am trying to be the monitor of them. And it's actually our kids are going to have to teach us. I mean, this is their medium, right?
Yeah,
And
and they already
this
do
is that
teach me.
yeah, but this is that crazy place where it's like, oh, I should know how much is good for them and how much is not. But I never had it. I
Right.
don't have any experience with it. And here I am acting like a crazy person, reading the internet, listening to everybody I can think of to try to
Mm-hmm.
know what's okay for them and what's not okay for them. But I forget to go to the source, which is them. Right? I
Right.
forget to check in with them and to
Right.
offer those good questions. And as you say, for it to get messy, to know that they're going to probably do too much or too little, to try to find that medium and that balance. But they are the teachers. And I think this may be
Yeah.
our fear of being dumb, our fear of not
Mm-hmm.
knowing, because we kind of come
Yeah.
from this in our parent role. We've got to be this all knowing, great protector, as you say. But we have no
Right.
clue. So we just become the all stupid, controller to them. That's how
Yeah.
they see us, right? Like you don't have a clue. I often look at my daughter and I think she's thinking, why are you trying to act like you know what you're doing when you don't have a clue?
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, and
So,
that level of control, I mean, it's a perceived control, me trying to control, and all the behaviors around that, it makes me crazy. It makes me feel really crazy.
yeah. Well, I think that's one of the reasons folks kind of end up my way because there is so much information about control and about getting your children to behave. And it's all about your children, your children, your children. And again, if you're seeing the reflection of your children not doing what you want, or you're seeing the reflection of them taking risk, and that's scary for you on an internal
Mm-hmm.
level, boy, it is really, really hard to try to control a child when you're not, in control inside your own being.
Mm-hmm. It's really crazy making.
Yeah. So when you began to turn back in, I know you practice the safe seat, our
Mm-hmm.
process
Yes.
in the Pure Joy method that helps us go back into our internal world. And you're describing this today really beautifully. Like I would begin to notice the internal world that felt so out of control just by my daughter asking for a piece of candy or wanting to
Mm-hmm.
do technology. So when you begin to turn your energy back inward toward you, what shifts did you start to notice in your
Mm.
relationship with your own vulnerability?
That's a beautiful question. And it's interesting. The first thing that came to mind was it really took some time
Mm.
to turn in and really meet those places in myself. And I think that was somehow a little surprising because I thought I had access, or at least some access. And so it took a lot of patience on my part and a willingness to be open to seeing things that I didn't maybe know were there, to not follow the stories I had been telling myself, for years. Like, oh, well, my childhood was pretty um, tumultuous and there were a lot of things that were scary. So I it was getting past those layers and those stories and dropping into a lot of vulnerability and fear on my part, um, around letting go and allowing life to lead me and show me where I needed to go rather than my stories about what I needed to do to keep myself and my family safe.
It's such a big one. I just want to pause for a moment because I think that's such a core vulnerability for so many of us, not having that faith in, something greater, right?
Hmm.
And so we feel like we have to become the greater. And as I say, well, then, yeah, what happens when I come up on knowledge that I don't know and that my child's interested in? Like, what happens
Right.
then? I have to become
Yeah.
the all knowing, all controlling, all together mama. And as you said, that gets really tiring.
Yeah, and because I was so used to moving that way in the world on my own before I even had kids, that's how I was with myself, and then they came along and I was doing that for myself and for them. And so I knew I wanted something different, but I didn't know how to get there. And I feel that that process of pausing and really seeing my stories running amok and still being willing to pause, feeling the sensations in my body and the clenching in my chest, and just saying, okay, I'm going to take a break and sit and be with myself, and dropping down through those layers. And again, I practice this still. I practice this often. Sometimes while I'm doing the dishes, sometimes while I'm driving in the car, but it's just dropping down into that very vulnerable place that feels like if I don't hold this together, nobody will. And really nurturing and being very, very, very kind and compassionate to that scared part of myself.
And as we're talking about just with our girls, once you learn to do this, you can begin to ask yourself really good questions. Because that's what happens
Yeah,
when we go in, right? It's like, is this dangerous?
right,
Is it really okay?
right.
Do I need to be in control right now? Does she have it? Am I, open? Whatever. We begin to self-reflect instead of other control, right? Because you are organizing your life not to feel that fear. And that meant I
Hmm.
had to focus on the external, which I thought was causing the fear. So as
Exactly.
you turn back inward, you could begin to be a good mom to you then. You could begin to
Hmm.
ask those beautiful self-reflective questions. Wow.
It's powerful, and I'm aware that, when I hear you lay it out in that way and I feel into myself around this process that I've been in over the last 3 years working with you, there's more ease. It's easier. And as I was sharing with you prior to the call, that there were some stressful things that came up this summer, and as a family we're in transition, and it's exciting and new, and I have a lot of excitement about what we're choosing to do as a family, and I notice more ease too when the challenges come and the stress and the fear rises, which it does daily. Waves come, and there's more ease. I just notice that I have a broader bandwidth and more resilience and more ease. And again, it's not that those feelings don't come up anymore. It's just that I'm meeting myself. There's a container now where I can meet myself and go, oh yeah, this is really scary. Oh, this is big. This is a big change, or this is a scary topic, or how do we get through this one? And there's more compassion and more resilience through having this container that's really been built over this period of time.
Well, it is because you're making a huge change right now. You've pulled your girls
Mhm.
out of school and y'all are traveling to Spain for a year to live. And
Mhm.
so, I've got little chill bumps thinking about this because
Mhm.
what you're talking about is that you are role modeling for your girls now instead of, can you imagine doing this a year or two ago, right? All the
Absolutely not.
right? All the control that you'd probably be like laid out flat, trying to pull everybody up, pack everybody's suitcase, and make sure everybody's room is done. And do you're not going to see you under
Exactly.
there, right? But maybe you could speak about what it looks like today, as far as empowering your daughters in this huge shift that y'all are making. Instead of like, oh, I've got to be responsible for everything. What does it look like in practice?
I will just name first that any time I go through a transition or any sort of change, that all of my old habits and methods of protection come forward. So I have noticed more control coming forward. And so I'm working with that personally. And then also in that process, a lot of letting go and getting curious, more curious with the girls about what they want to study, in terms of their own personal, what kind of books do you want to read, what kind of things do you want to learn about, and how do you want to learn these things, and what works best for you. And it's really been fun to be inquiring more with them around what they love and what they want to learn about, and how that happens.
Well, you're getting to know your daughters versus
Yeah.
getting to know more about your control, which you're very
Yeah.
intimate with. But I hear
Yeah.
a deep intimacy with your daughter's highest values and what
Mhm.
really excites them instead of trying to get them to be who you need them to be so you don't feel scared.
Yeah, and which is the whole reason we're doing what we're doing, because we want to spend time together as a family, and I want to know who they are. That's what's been coming up more and more in the last couple of months. There's this new sense of, oh, freedom inside of myself to let go and say, well, wait a minute, who are they really? Rather than who I think they should be so that they're successful, so that I feel okay. And I can say that I did a good job on parenting them. That's falling away more and more. And there's more space to really turn towards them and see, who are you? And, oh, you're not so interested in math at all, but how might you? Well, if you were to learn this, how would you want to learn it? And, oh, it feels better to learn that skipping down a beach and chanting, the times tables rather than sitting at a desk and writing the answers out, which is what I did. I was like, oh, I want to do it right and be very regimented and organized, and they're much more playful and they're creative in different ways. And I love witnessing their process of taking in information and digesting it.
Yeah, so I hear what you're doing is you're stepping out of your role and stepping into relationship. Yeah. And that's so
Yeah,
beautiful because now you're seeing that they have value to you being exactly who they are,
yeah.
right? Where before they had value for being who you needed them to be.
And the crazy thing, Leslie, is I didn't even realize I was doing that.
Yeah.
And when I did realize, so much grief came forward for me,
Mm.
so much heartache, and actually maybe it had always been there underneath the surface, because some part of me knew I'm missing out. I'm missing something beautiful here because I'm so terrified, and I'm trying to hold all of this together, that I'm actually missing these beautiful beings that are so full of wisdom, that really know their direction and their own path. I don't need to do anything here except love them and encourage them and be true and honest to with myself and with them about what works for me and what doesn't, and have those boundaries, which is a lot of the work that we did together, is for me to have my own boundaries. but to really appreciate them. And when I realized, oh my gosh, I don't want to miss this. Here are these just beautiful beings in front of me. And I want to get out of my own way so that I can see them and therefore see myself more clearly as well.
And my experience, and I know it's yours, is then we become a safe base where our children want to come. And when she's scared, she can come to me because she knows I'm not going to judge her or try to fix her or change her or manipulate her or push her or pull her. She knows that I'm going to be that safe place that's going to ask those really good questions where she can begin
Mm-hmm.
to self reflect. And it does happen. I want folks to know. Gillian's talking about it's happened for me. My daughter's 18, and I'm like her wise counsel. She will
Mm-hmm.
come and she's never coming for me really for advice. That's why I asked you at the very beginning, what do you think they're really coming to you for?
Mm-hmm.
Right? We've set it up to where
Yeah.
we think they're coming to us for the great authority and that we know best, but I don't think so. I think they're really coming, as you said, for validation. See me, ask me good questions, help me self reflect, help me know myself. And this is what Pure Joy does. This is our work here, is to help you know yourself. And as Jillian's saying, the more you know yourself, the more you will be open to learning about these beautiful beings that come through you into the world. So I would love to ask one last question before we go, because I think folks might be
Sure.
curious about how this has affected your partnership and your relationship.
Well, it's been many things. I have a lot more compassion for myself. I have a lot more compassion for my partner. And I can almost see, as I see those scared, wounded, controlling places within myself and have compassion for those places within myself, I have compassion, more compassion for my partner as well. And I have a sense too of, oh gosh, I think I have a better sense of where he's coming from. Like, oh boy, this must have been really scary for him. Of course, I don't know the whole story unless he shares with me, but there's just, there's more compassion and more space to to see rather than reacting to his behavior. And it's also been challenging because I stepped into this work on mostly on my own, and for him he just had a different view, a different way of seeing things. And I I spent a bit of time wanting to quote unquote educate him on how he should really see that what I'm starting to learn is really fantastic. So that was tricky and uncomfortable and didn't work very well at all. I mean, when I'm really honest, it didn't work at all. But what I've noticed is that the more that I stay true to really meeting my own activation when things come up and taking time to really tend to myself and then turn towards my children when things are coming up and asking those questions and really, really dropping down in with them. Tell me more about that. I want to know more about you here and what are you thinking and why do you think that's a good idea? I've never even thought of doing that. Please tell me more. I've noticed that my husband is finding his own way to inquire with our daughters. And it's beautiful because it's very different. And he brings a different energy, and they really respect him and respect his point of view. Not always. Sometimes it's annoying and they don't want to hear what he has to say. But there is, I see um, so much flourishing in their relationships
Hmm.
as well.
So
And
sweet.
and and it's not always easy.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's the misnomer in all of this is when we come to conscious parenting, sometimes we think it's all supposed to be all loving and peaceful and wonderful. And that's a one-sided story, right? Wholeness, wholeness means wholeness. It accepts, loves, contains everything. So
Yes.
I just want to say, as my teacher Bruce likes to say, relationships are inherently disturbing because they will always bring forth where we are not loving ourselves, right? And
Yes.
so that's the challenge, when you meet it. When you came in, Gillian, you were very clear with me that you wanted to love yourself on a deeper level. And
Mm-hmm.
you were willing to do whatever that took, which for you meant taking your focus off of your girls and off of the
Mm-hmm.
control and turning back in to work with your internal landscape, which you've done so beautifully, dear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, thank you. I love this work for that.
yeah,
And I you just asked how this shows up in my partnership, and that I would say that is true too. There's much less focus out there on, oh, he should do this, or he should be saying that, or if only he did it this way, and turning in towards myself. I think my whole family is relieved. I said to my family last year, "Oh, sometimes I kind of feel like a border collie. Like if I were a dog, I think I'd be a border collie with that kind of high intensity,
yeah.
sort of nipping at everybody's ankles. Like, no, 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 little, no, you need to go to the left. Oh, no, no, a little more to the right." They're all so relieved
Right, you're becoming
that I
more a big shepherd, like I see like a big,
exactly.
yeah, right.
Yeah, sitting in the field, smelling the flowers,
Oh,
looking up at the
yes,
sky, and
a
then every once in a
sheepdog.
while yes, giving a bark of approval, like
Yeah.
or appreciation. I think would be a better way to say it. Just like, I love you all. Look at you being so beautiful and lovely, and I'm
Yeah.
sitting here feeling myself.
And, who doesn't want to come up to a big old sheepdog? They'll come to you now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
A lot more
Yeah,
relaxing.
absolutely.
Well, thank you, love. I am so excited to hear about your adventures over the next year because I'm sure you will have many.
Well, thank you, Leslie. This was wonderful to have this time with you. And like I said, it continues on. It's a
Yes,
daily practice.
it
Yeah.
is. I say it's for life.
And I'm so grateful to have these tools in my
Mm.
toolbox.
And thank you to everyone who is listening. If you enjoyed the podcast today, I would really appreciate you leaving a review and sharing with others. That's how we get the word out so others can hear. And you can always go to my website, www.purejoyparenting.com, and download a free copy of the Safe Seat process. This is the foundational process that we use in Pure Joy to come back deeply into our internal world and to learn deeper and deeper self-love. Thank you to Gillian for joining me today and sharing her wisdom and discoveries as she began to let go of control and moved into loving what is. Parenting Paused is produced by Kim Paletti at Sound Mind Productions. Music by Jan Perchik. You can find the show notes at www.purejoyparenting.com, where you'll get access to the foundational practice of Pure Joy, the Safe Seat, and find links to relevant topics, as well as a transcription of the show. And if this work inspires you and you would like to practice, come join us in my free Pure Joy Parenting Practice group. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for being here today and listening to the Parenting Pause podcast, your partner and support in finding the joy in yourself and with your children. And remember, if you're about to scream, pause.